November 10, 1987. The day was coming to an end in Buttala, and darkness gathered. Father Michael began to celebrate the Holy Mass together with Sister Benedict, Sister Milberga and Shirani, residents at Subaset Gedera. At some point, they reflected and prayed about something that bothered them lately. Should they stay or leave the village amidst the intensifying life threats? Father Mike had distributed slips of paper asking them to state on the left side the reasons for staying on, and on the other side reasons against staying, so that each person could discern their choice. He reiterated his stance clearly. Why should we be afraid to die? If we are needed by the people, we should not desert or abandon them. Now we shall surrender ourselves to God. He stated, "Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." Then came a noise from behind him. At point-blank range, the assassin's bullet pierced through his head. The prophet remained fearless until he became a martyr. Father Mike did not die in vain. His death is full of meaning because of the life he led. We cannot understand the martyrdom of Father Mike unless we understand his exceptional life. Michael Paul Rodrigo was born on June 30th, 1927 in Dehiwala, Sri Lanka, as the sixth and the youngest child of his family. His life with the Oblates began at the age of 20 when he entered the novitiate in 1947. After professing his first religious vows in 1948, he was sent to the Gregorian University in Rome for his philosophical and theological studies. Father Michael's first assignment was to the staff of the newly begun National Seminary of Our Lady of Lanka in Kandy. A thinker, a seeker, and a researcher of his caliber was indeed a need for that revered place where the young seminarians studied.
Father Michael Rodrigo was one of our family friends. He was not new to me, but I closely associated with him when I joined the Oblate Scholasticate, Kandy, as a scholastic brother. He was one of my formators, professor in philosophy, Buddhism and psychology. He taught me logic.
1962 was a significant year to the Catholic Church.
The Vatican Ecumenical Council, the greatest assembly of Roman Catholic prelates in history. 10,000 churchmen take part in the opening ceremonies of the council, which is expected to last for many months.
The reforms made to the sacred liturgy was one among many major changes of the Vatican II. As the professor of liturgy at the National Seminary, he felt that it was his responsibility to spearhead the liturgical renewal in Sri Lanka following the council.
During major vacations, I used to travel with him during that time, animating the parish priests and the parishioners about the renewal of liturgy. Because he was expert on that, we were having exhibitions, art exhibition, liturgy exhibition with him actually. So like that actually I got involved with his ministry also.
In late 60s, there was another phenomenon taking roots in many parts of the world. youth unrest. In Sri Lanka too, a new consciousness evolved among the youth of the time against the Western style of constitutional structures that enslaved them. As a Sri Lankan Christian, he felt that he should first discover the liberating dimensions of Christianity along with the other religions of Sri Lanka. Never be afraid of studying and reflecting the culture of other religions. I am a Buddhist by culture and a Christian by religion. These were the statements that Father Mike repeatedly used. So much so, the moral passover from selfishness to selflessness in Christianity and other religions in Sri Lanka was the title of his second doctoral thesis, which he defended at the Catholic University of Paris in 1973. By now, Father Mike was convinced if Catholicism needs to get rooted in Sri Lanka, it has to be more open to indigenization and interreligious dialogue. No wonder that after coming back from Paris, Father Mike joined with the oblate scholar and visionary Father Tissa Balasuriya OMI at his Center for Society and Religion in Colombo. In 1975, Bishop Leon Anayakara OSB, the bishop of the newly formed Diocese of Buttala, invited Father Mike to take charge of his new experimental seminary, Sevaka Sevana, House of Ministries. The seminarians were supposed to spend a part of their time among the poor people in their villages. Father Mike's time at the Sevaka Sevana was his moment of meeting God at the burning bush. God made him hear the cry of the poor. He was certain that God called him to be a leaven among those poor peasants. And in the year 1980 found Subaset Gatherer, House of Well-Wishers, a Christian Buddhist fellowship and dialogue center in Alukalavita, Buttala in Lower Uva.
What touched me in his life actually very strongly, that being a man of that caliber, he had a very bright future as a theologian, locally and internationally. But he let go everything. He emptied himself, humbled himself, and he risked his own life and identified with the poor and the downtrodden and the abandoned, and made his permanent home in a small hamlet in Buttala.
The rare achiever of a double doctorate wished to incarnate himself in the ambience of Uva peasantry and pioneered a dialogue of life with them.
එයාගේ උපාධි දෙකක් තිබ්බා. මහාචාර්යවරයෙක් හැටියට පත් වුණා ප්‍රංශේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක. එයා ඒකත් අතහැරලා තමයි ගියේ බුත්තල. බුද්ධාගම ගැනත් හොඳ දැනුමක් තිබ්බා. පස්සේ අර පන්සලේ අහමදුරොත් කිව්වා බුද්ධාගම ඉගෙන ගන්න එතනට යන්න.
He preached the gospel of love to the Buddhists with their own vocabulary and traditions. There were many ways through which the Subaset Gatherer community entered into the hearts of the people. Training in organic and sustainable farming, production of bio-weedicide and environment-friendly pesticides, helping farmers to manage prices and sales professionally were some of them.
When it comes to educating the poor rural masses about their own empowerment, he became educator par excellence in Buttala, and his ongoing education campaign could be named Education for Liberation. He theologized on their behalf and became the voice of the voiceless, power of the powerless, the hope of the hopeless. He believed liberation as the essence of the Christian message. The church not only must evangelize the poor, but also allow persons to be evangelized by the poor. Following Christ means becoming a blessing unto the poor. The true friend of Christ is the true friend of the poor. Father Mike contributed seminally towards creating a synthesis of an Asian theology of liberation. He wrote and taught what he lived out among the rural poor and practiced what he wrote and preached.
For the children, Subhaset Gedera hosted various educational courses. Some youth were trained to be teachers to carry out these programs by empowering them with knowledge and leadership. They also organized health campaigns, recycled school dropouts back to school, started a library, trained barefoot nurses, and introduced indigenous medicine that could be made in the village itself.
Once I visited him in Buttala with another scholastic brother. So we were tired a little bit and we arrived in Buttala and he asked, Clement, what do you like to drink? I said, I'm thirsty, I like something to quench my thirst. He said, we don't have Coca-Cola, it's very expensive Coca-Cola. I can give you a local drink which I made, Gotu-Cola. I was wondering what is this Gotu-Cola, to see that it was made out of Gotu-Cola. Because in his garden actually he found a lot of medicinal plants. So with that actually he manipulated and became a local Vedamatya there itself. Then the other brother, he asked, brother, what's your name, brother? He said, Father, I'm Bastian. Oh, you're Bastian, I'm a Christian. Then of course, once I can remember that Father Michael and Father Dalston Forbes, they are good friends actually, and they asked Dalston, how do you call in Sinhala the shower? You know, in the bathroom you get shower, no? Ultimately he said actually, Dalston is called war shower. And that is Mike. No? With all these other capabilities, actual qualities. He was a simple man, he had a good sense of humor, and he amused people. When I wanted to go to Pakistan as a missionary, he encouraged me a lot. And he in fact visited us in Pakistan, as usually animated us, encouraged us.
Dialogue of life is a more difficult experience than the intellectual dialogue of scholars. Wearing the garb of a villager, he would walk miles. He too shared their lack of water, lack of electricity, and of transport facilities.
Unlike today, back then, travel to and within Monoragala was difficult because of the poor state of roads and public transportation. It used to take a 12-hour, crowded, dusty, sweaty bus ride to reach the villages of the district at that time. And while I, as a young student, could stomach that ordeal, I marveled at the fact that it was Father Mike's customary mode of transportation. He chose to live among the poor and live like the poor because he was convinced that it was only by experiencing their hardships firsthand that he could serve as a witness for Christ.
Father Michael was the voice of the people who were oppressed both by their local landlords and also by the multinational companies that owned the sugarcane plantations.
මේ වගා කරන් වවන්න පටන් ගත්තා. ඒකත් එක්ක ගැටුමක් ඇති වුණා මේ ප්‍රජාවත් එක්ක. ඒකට සම්බන්ධ වුණා. පස්සේ යාට තර්ජන කරා ඔයා මෙතනින් යන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ ප්‍රජාවත් එක්ක ගිහලා වැඩ කරනවා නම් ඒකේ අනතුරුදායක වැඩක් ඒක. නමුත් ප්‍රජාවේ අවශ්‍යතාවයන් නියම විදිහට අපිට දැනගන්න පුළුවන් එතනට ගියා නම් විතරයි. ප්‍රජාවේ අවශ්‍යතාවය හොයාගෙන යනවා නම්
ඒක දේශපාලන අවශ්‍යතාවයක් හැටියට පේනවා.
අයි ප්‍රජාව සූරා කන්නේ කවුරු හරි ඉන්නේ. ඒතකොට ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ විසඳන්න කෙලින්ම හැප්පෙන්න වෙන්නේ මේ ප්‍රජාව සූරා කන මිනිස්සුන් එක්කමයි.
He even wrote to the president giving details about the abuse of power and money in order to control innocent farmers' resistance. He conscientized the people against such exploitation and injustice. A true Christian engages in the continuous process of becoming Christian. In that process, Father Mike not only gave up the comfortable lifestyle in the seminary, he also gave up his own previous ideologies to embrace new convictions to life. A real paradigm shift expected of a man of God.
I was shocked actually, but I was not surprised, because he had a very challenging life in that whole area. But I remember also at the same time Oscar Romero. He died for a purpose, and I feel Father Mike died for a purpose also. His death is not a wastage for us as oblates.
The true oblate is the one who feels the heartbeat of sufferings of the poor, like their founder, St. Eugene de Mazenod, and commit himself in their struggle so they could be liberated from being oppressed. In that sense, Father Michael definitely falls into the category of one of the greatest oblates in the congregation's history. Responding to the call of the Spirit, some oblates identify themselves with the poor, sharing their life and commitment to justice. Moving into a small mud hut in the village of Buttala, that was exactly what he did.
Recalling a poem of his, titled The Holy Founder and Myself, he said, I haunted villagers with the Mazenod system, and first time in my life I found those who might listen if told, the right to greater freedom. Somehow I found Christ. I went to the village and was converted, because he was present. His favor called grace made me detect his face to people.
Since his death on the 10th of November every year, this great personality of Father Michael Paul Rodrigo is commemorated by his fellow oblates, priests, nuns, villagers, as well as his family members at Subaset Gedara in Alukalavita, Buttala. Among them is the last surviving member of his family, his beloved sister Petronella. A holy mass is offered at the altar beneath which lies the brain of Father Mike. Ironically, the last decision he made on earth was the decision to remain with his people. Dear Father Mike, champion of the poor and martyr of justice, your legacy will remain forever.
My dear friends, deep down in your heart, you are unhappy that there are enormous differences in life. While all are human, some pretend to be superhuman. And in the same process, they make others subhuman, dehumanized. And when this thought comes to you in prayer, in reflection, in meditation, do you merely dismiss it? See, Jesus came to give us life, that we might have it more abundantly. What have we done with food and life? What have we done with other people's lives? Just think of the July Holocaust. With everyone's death, did we die a little? Did we feel the heartbreak? If we don't feel sympathy, then we will not have empathy with the sufferer. We are then not like Jesus.